I first met him during the opening week of my internship at a modest publishing house nestled between crumbling buildings and the constant hum of city life. It wasn't flashy or high profile, but it was everything I had worked toward for years. I was focused, driven, and had no interest in distractions, especially not the kind involving romance. He had already been part of the company for a few months before I arrived. There was something still and steady about him, like the calm surface of a lake. He didn't draw attention to himself, didn't speak just to fill silence. He seemed to absorb everything going on around him, but rarely commented on it. He wasn't the kind of person you noticed right away, but once you did, it became hard to look away. We were paired together for a minor task, reviewing and reformatting an old manuscript. It wasn't exciting, but it meant long evenings in the office, coffee breaks that turned into quiet conversations, and lunches spent in the far corner of the break room. Our talk stayed safe at first: books, films, music. I remember him telling me about a novel he adored, one I had never even heard of. The next morning, I found a copy of it on my desk with a note that read, "I think the ending will stay with you." I finished it in 3 days. The ending did stay with me, but what stuck even more was the gesture itself. Small, thoughtful, unexpected. It made me feel noticed, not just as someone filling a desk across from his, but as a person. Over time, without either of us trying, our bond deepened. We began opening up about our lives. He spoke about his mother, how she raised him alone after his father vanished when he was just a child, how he learned to cook by 13 because she'd come home exhausted every night, how silence was something he'd come to rely on to keep peace in the house. I shared things I hadn't planned to, about my parents' high standards, how rest always felt like failure, how love seemed like a luxury I couldn't afford if I wanted to be enough. I didn't even realize how emotionally attached I had become until the day he didn't come to work. I kept glancing at the door, hoping to see him walk in. That's when I knew I missed him more than I probably should have. Then came that night. It was late, and rain was hammering down. I was the last one gathering my things when I spotted him outside the building, soaked through, holding 2 cups of coffee. He didn't seem to care about the storm or the curious glances from strangers. He just smiled when I stepped out and said, "Thought you could use this." I took the cup. For a few minutes, we just stood there in the rain, watching traffic move by like nothing mattered. When he looked at me, there was something in his eyes, tender, hesitant, and unsure. He said, "I wanted to say this for a while now, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's just me, but I really like you. I think about you all the time. I don't expect anything. I just needed you to know." I didn't respond right away. His confession didn't shock me. Deep down, I'd felt the same pull. But for me, it wasn't clear enough, not strong enough. Not yet. I told him the truth. I cared deeply about him, but I wasn't ready. I couldn't give him what he deserved, not in the state I was in. I said I valued what we had and didn't want to ruin it. I hoped we could keep talking, keep sharing laughs about bad pizza and old movies. He didn't argue, didn't try to convince me otherwise. He simply gave a quiet, heartbroken smile, nodded once, and said, "I understand." Then he turned and walked away. No bitterness, no last words. I stood there in the rain, holding the coffee he brought, watching until he disappeared into the dark. The next day, I expected a message, maybe a simple email, a casual excuse to reconnect. But nothing came. At work, he was still polite, but distant, detached. 2 weeks later, he resigned. No explanations, no goodbyes. Just packed his things and slipped out of the building as quietly as he'd entered it. Months later, I tried to look him up just to check in, but there was no trace. No social media, no professional accounts, no forwarding email. It was like he had vanished from the world. Years have gone by now. Life moved on. I've changed, grown, fallen in love, lost, learned. But once in a while, the memories return, on rainy days, or when someone places a book on my desk, or when a gentle song plays in the background and reminds me of his silence. I remember how he looked at me, not with pressure or expectation, but with quiet hope. I remember the warmth in the way he listened, how he never made me feel small or silly. And I remember his smile that final night, sad, soft, full of acceptance. like he knew the chapter was closing, and he was letting it go with grace. Sometimes I wonder what might have happened if I had taken that chance, if I had said yes, if I had let myself fall for someone who made stillness feel like home and silence feel like love. But I didn't, and he left, and I never saw him again. That's the way some people enter your life. Not to stay, not to uproot your world, but to remind you that even the quiet moments carry weight, that even in parting, love can exist, that sometimes the saddest smile holds something eternal,